Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc. It is your Sunday edition of transfer news, views, and clues from around the Premier League and beyond. We got some big ones today. Kolo Muani, Jadon Sancho, Aaron Ramsdale, Eberechi Eze, of course, is not going away in the news, and Harvey, Elliott, among loads of other stories. Your Sunday evening 24 hours of news starts right here. I am with my man, Jonny H32. Before I hand over to him to find out how he's doing, guys, you know what you got to do? Smash the granny out of the like button. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Join the now 2,150 people that have gone before you. This channel is ratata, flying high. Love to see it. Please let us know in the comments where you're from and who you support and participate in the conversation. Jonny, how are you, my man?
I'm all good. I'm all good. You know, Sunday, we're a week to go before July the 1st, next Sunday. No, next Monday, isn't it? Next Monday, isn't it? July the 1st? Yeah. 1 week before we have real liftoff. They're all posturing, getting ready, getting in position. And I think we're going to fire off. Some people are complaining there's a bit of a lull. But I think, as we said, a lot of contracts expire, start 1st of July. New accounts come in, new club accounts come in, so they'll spend in the next year. They can't do it before the 1st, and I'm excited. But there's some big ones here today that we're going to talk about.
Just quickly before we get into the actual names, mate, just on this June versus July versus August thing with New Year accounts, Aston Villa, I don't know if Aston Villa have moved their accounts back to being in line, because last year they took the 13th month to get themselves out of their FFP jam. I don't know if, like, this year they've moved it back and only got 11 months in. Maybe they probably haven't got the opportunity to do that. I'm not fully clued up on that particular, like, how that works. But Liverpool, obviously, their year finished in May. Is there, and so they're already in their next financial year, which is possibly why they probably did that deliberately, clever planning from them to get ahead, move into their next year before everybody else did, so they could get their business done without the threat of competition stepping in and hijacking. Is that a tactic that you could see maybe more teams doing for next year? Some of them that are in a healthier position do it on an 11-month basis to get themselves the right side of the line so that they can do what Liverpool are doing this year. Could Tottenham do it next season?
I mean, listen, last season Liverpool didn't really, do anything really because Slot came in. They got one player in on loan. And the January window, they did Mamashvili to come this summer. They didn't really do much. So they didn't take any advantage of that last season because they obviously needed Slot to look at the squad. He's not only looked at the squad, he's won the title, looked at the squad, and now he's decided exactly what he wants and exactly what he doesn't want. So I think this has been a long time in the planning, and they've moved very, very, very quickly. So I think there's that. I mean, we know that the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City have moved very quickly because of the World Club Cup. And as far as Man United are concerned, they wanted to move on Cunha because they knew there'd be a lot of interest in him. And they also thought that either one of Jadon Sancho and Fernandes or both were going to be moving, and then they would have all this money. So that's why they were pushing for Bueno and some of the other players that they are chasing. But there's a blockage, Sean, with Man United, as we've spoken, as anyone's been listening, been a big blockage there. And until one of, Onana, Sancho, Rashford, Casemiro, and the likes, we know Anthony, until one of them or two of them start going there, they're gonna. But the other clubs, I think on the whole, there's no need for them to go before July the 1st. The funny thing is, Sean, like most clubs are already looking, March, April. They're already making plans for the season ahead. If you know what your manager's going to be, they're already analysing the squad. Who's vulnerable? Who would they like to get rid of? Who could they possibly get? The fact it seems strange that you're talking about it and planning, and yet, we're in July and nothing's happened yet. But that's the way football goes, unfortunately. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I think that with regards to the accounting shift, I think you kind of made a good point there that Liverpool could probably have done that because they didn't do anything last year, so that their financial outlay last season was so little in the grand scheme of things relative to other football clubs. So then they can obviously move that needle, move it a month early, knowing that they then have no problems with FFP. They have that month jump on everybody else, and that this season was going to be the season when they go for the rebuild. So when you're talking about other Premier League clubs planning from like March, April for what they're going to do in the summer, it almost feels like Liverpool are thinking 18 months ahead.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With Slot, that's what I'm saying. With Slot, because he didn't buy anyone in that window, Chiesa on loan was the only thing that they really did. Then, their planning has been considerably longer. And that's why, we aren't going to miss our targets. Liverpool have meant business. We won the title. We want our targets. We're not going to give anyone the opportunity to rough road and jump on ours, and therefore we're going to make them count right there and then. And they have. I mean, Frimpong, Kirkes, and Wirtz, and they're not done yet because they're getting players out. Kelleher's going. Konsa may be going to Bayer Leverkusen. So they're players in, players out.
That deal's pretty much done. 40 million quid.
And I think other players will be moving. I don't think this is in any shape, way, or form the end of their transfer.
Well, we've got one of those stories today for the guys here, Harvey Elliott. We're going to come to him in a short time, mate. But I didn't put this guy's name on the thumbnail or his face, but a player that Tottenham fans will be familiar with and disappointed that we missed out on.
Yeah.
The PSG player who went to Juventus, Randall Kolo Muani. I think he's playing right now, isn't he, mate? Or did you say he's playing right now?
He's played for Juventus. He scored 2 goals in the last game. Should have had a hat trick. I mean, I think talk about hit the ground running when he went there on loan, and I think he scored 8 goals in the last 10 games. I was
10 goals in 20 appearances for Juve.
Yeah. I was so excited when I saw the name come up when we were linked with him. But then reality stepped in, and Spurs fans were left apparently believing that we were never interested in Kolo Muani, and Matthias Tel was always the man, which I didn't believe. But there is a problem there, right? Because Juventus, PSG want 85 million euros, and Juventus don't have anywhere near that money.
That's right.
He would like to stay at Juventus, so unless they can agree another year's loan with PSG, which I'm not quite sure how you're going to do that, because you could devalue the player by another year and he might not be worth the 85 million if someone is prepared to spend. And we know that there is a club who is willing to spend that. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Club that seems to be willing to spend any amount of money on every player, and the rules seem not to affect them, because their ability to sell car parks to themselves, to sell hotels to themselves, to sell ladies football clubs to themselves, and then loan them back full of revenue. It's quite wild that they're, and you know what, like I've stopped even kind of caring about this, because the Premier League clubs had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to change the rules on that, and then none of them had any interest in doing it. So that fear that we've been talking about on this channel and previously on Sean Butler TV, Johnny, where we were saying like it's not going to take much more in the way of kind of dissidents or teams getting on board, scratching each other's backs, for there to be essentially no more tightening of the loopholes. We spoke about West Ham, spoke about Crystal Palace, their new ownerships and the ties that they have with Chelsea and Blueco. But ultimately, like all of that stuff could have been necessary and relevant if it came to the votes. But in order for there to be a vote, there has to be a willingness on behalf of the Premier League owners to actually take it to a vote. There has to be a chance that you're going to get to those 15 or 14 votes in favour of a change. Recently, they didn't even get anything like it in the interest. So it looks like no more changes are going to happen. But sorry, just to quickly, Chelsea are the team that have come in for Kolo Muani. L'Equipe in Paris are saying that that Chelsea and PSG have entered negotiations for the guy.
I mean, it's interesting because he'd like to stay at Juve. I mean, I'm not sure. Will that mean that Noni Makelele will be on his way? I mean, Maresca's protesting and saying, no, he's very much part of our team for next season. But, Chelsea, I mean, where have they can't store any more players, right? There was a thing with the changing room. They couldn't even fit them all in the changing room. There's just so many. They've got the kid coming from Brazil who is the number 2 Spanish after Endrick, the number 2 Brazilian. He comes this summer. I think he's still a bit young. He's still only 18 years of age. But where they're going to fit him? But this guy is definitely a step up. He's a guy that could easily come into the Premier League and absolutely smash it. I think he's an absolutely superb player. So I can believe that would happen if they can convince the player to leave Juventus. Chelsea are in the Champions League, so it's not like he's dropping down. And also the fact, Chelsea can sell quite a few assets there, whether it be in Cuckoo, Nicholas Jackson, Noni, and they've got a lot that they can move out. But that one will be interesting to see.
I was reading a story earlier about Premier League clubs sort of already signing players that aren't arriving immediately for the future.
Yeah.
And guess what? Of the 4 names that are mentioned here, 2 of them are Chelsea related. Giovanni Quenda, who's coming from Sporting to Chelsea next summer, June 2026.
And how old is he, Sean?
He's a kid.
Yeah.
How much do you think they paid for him already?
Well, they'll be paying a lot of money because he's one of the top young talents. They bought 2 of the most exciting Brazilian talents.
That's the other one.
17 years of age. And this Quenda is another one. They're just literally buying up. I mean, Spurs started doing it, and a lot of the fan base were saying, "Look, all we're doing is spending money on kids.
No more kids, no more kids,
no more kids, no more kids." Whereas Don Fabio has been buying up the kids, so we have a conveyor belt of talent coming through. Meanwhile, Chelsea are doing it. Man City have always been doing it, and unless you join that pilgrimage to try and find the young kids. And the problem for a country like Portugal, who has traditionally clubs like Benfica, Porto, Sporting, who have made billions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds of buying out kids from South America, bringing them there for not much money and then selling them off for ridiculous buyout clauses. Premier League clubs now have joined the game. They're going out to South America, whether it be Ecuador, Argentina, Brazil, and they're buying up these kids themselves now.
I just wonder whether this is becoming like a zero-sum game, though. Like, part of the value for the teams that did that in the past was that they would buy these younger players cheap and then be able to sell them on to a Premier League club at inflated valuations a couple of years into their European journey. The likes of Giovanni Quenda, for example, Chelsea have already paid £42.1 million for him. And he's not even arriving. He's staying in Sporting for another year. We've got this other guy that you mentioned. His name's Dena Evangelista from Corinthians.
Yes.
He's not joining until next summer. And he's coming for £11.5 million, right? So
there's one this summer, Sean. And then there's Perez that Boris was talking about, the Ecuadorian kid, right? Another top talent. Now, the thing is, when is someone going to... I mean, look, Chelsea keep breaking the law, right? At one stage, they had, I think it was 42 players out on loan. And and then what they did, or was it 30? I think it was 32. I think I'm going over. I think it was 32, 32 players out on loan. And they were buying up all the talent and they were loaning them out. So UEFA said, no, you're not doing that anymore. So they made the max 8, then 7. And I think this season it goes down to 6 is the maximum you can have out on loan. So what do? You just go and buy other clubs. You start buying other clubs. And Tottenham, quite honestly, we were so far ahead of the curveball, Enoch, when they had the likes of Glasgow Rangers, Slavia Prague and the likes. And then they had to get rid of all of those clubs to meet UEFA requirements. Now it's gone full circle, and now FIFA are quite happy with it as long as you're not in the same competition. I mean, what you could do now, for example, if Tottenham had Glasgow Rangers, Slavia Prague, you'd be buying loads and loads of kids and you'd just be putting them out on loan. And that's what Chelsea are doing, because I don't know where they're holding them all. It's like a storage pen. Right? They've got somewhere with all this talent. Them and Man City, in fairness to Arsenal are producing most of those, but Man City and Chelsea are buying it all up, as are Brighton. I mean, Brighton are doing a good job on that, and they've been doing a good job on that for quite a long time. We can see some of the talent they've been buying from South America. Estepinian and all the rest of it from Ecuador and other countries in South America.
It just feels to me like Brighton do it a little bit more strategically, that they go out and find these players and they don't go and buy 10 or 12. They go and buy 1 or 2 that they are very much kind of in the interest of getting. Whereas Chelsea are a team that goes and gets 10 or 15. Excuse me for 1 second. 1 second. Sorry, Johnny.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Johnny Phelan, Madueke, we're talking about club trained. I don't want to make it all about Spurs, but Madueke, could Spurs bring him back to become one of our club trained players, because we're short of club trained players. Dennis Kirkin from Sunderland is another one that, Spurs could bring back. And we all know about Kyle Walker-Peters. I think one of these is definitely going to happen. Because, last season we had like goalkeepers filling in the spot, which is absolutely ludicrous, who are never, ever going to play. And at least, if we can bring in a Madueke, a Kirkin, Dennis Kirkin, who I think is a good player. I was doing a big dive. I think Blaine's asked a question here. Seeing instead of KWP, with Fulham are pursuing, despite... I like him.
Dennis Kirkin. I looked at Dennis Kirkin on the I don't know how you say, is it Sirkin or Kirkin? I'm not sure. But I went and looked at the him on the Y Scout yesterday for about 20 minutes. I know he's not like multifaceted. He's sort of one side over the other. As KWP is certainly both sided. I actually prefer Dennis Sirkin. I think he's a really interesting player. He's taller, he's stronger, he can drive with the ball. He's got a lovely cross on him, and he looks up. And so I think that people are going to sort of scoff their nose up to the idea of bringing back a player who didn't make it at Tottenham. They went down to the championship level and having a good thing. And look, if you're going to hold my energy around someone like Manor Solomon, then you have to hold the same energy for championship level performances from players that look good. But for what it's worth, if we have to pick one of those 2 guys to get the homegrown club train thing up, Johnny, I probably would prefer to see Dennis Sirkin come back than Kyle Walker-Peters.
Listen, I don't prescribe to this notion about the championship. Sometimes in a professional footballer's life, you're at a top club, you're not getting the run of the green, you realise you've got to go backwards to come forwards. And sometimes they've got to take a step down to get football, to get that game time to come back. When you've got, Jamie Vardy and you've got, what's his name, from the centre-back at Brentford, Pinnock, right, who come from Forest Green, and Jamie Vardy come from non-league football. You've got players sometimes that have to go down to the championship to come back up. And I always thought Sirkin was a good player. I was quite surprised we got rid of him, but we had a buyback clause on him, which I believe is now expired. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, so I don't think it'd be a lot of money. But that is. I mean, we've digressed a bit. Because we were on.
We're just talking about young players, essentially. Just for what it's worth, there's another name on this list here that I forgot to mention to you guys. Chelsea going after another guy. They've got another guy coming in August next year called Dastan Satpayev, who's coming from Karat Almaty, which is a Kazakhstan Premier League club, on a 5-year deal with an option, and they paid £3.5 million for him. I mean, again, like how do these players pop up in the? Are they just using Y Scout and just dialing things up and finding kids out in the arse end of the world somewhere? I don't know. It's
like a net. I mean,
if
they were fishermen. If they were fishermen, they'd be done, right? Because
leave some for the next guy.
Scoop up everything, right? Don't worry if we kill a few of the others. Just chuck them back in the
They just throw a grenade into the lake and see what happens.
Yeah, that's Chelsea's method. Brighton's a little bit more refined. Same with Brentford and a lot of other clubs. Chelsea is just trawl the sea, pick up everything you can get, and we're bound to find a few gems. And let's be honest, they are. I mean, you watch a Chelsea game and you think, oh, they've got injury crisis. Well, there's no such thing as an injury crisis at Chelsea. Half the team's gone, and all these others turned up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the difference is though, right? Like there's a method to their madness that is kind of somewhat working, but in order to play that game, you have to have a relationship with money whereby you can just, spend all this money on players that are not going to affect your FFP and your PSR, and then if you sell some on the other side that are going to come in and reap the benefits of it, then it's it's an interesting tactic, but you need to have owners that sort of have a different relationship with money than to traditional owners, or at least our owner. But look, we'll park the Chelsea and the youth team conversation for a while. Let's move on to the big story of the day, or one of the big stories of the day, mate. Harvey Elliott, Liverpool star Harvey Elliott. Apparently, a bidding war is about to take place starting next week with Aston Villa and Brighton. Both clubs see Harvey Elliott as a massive player for the future, but certainly someone that can help them now. I mean, look, Brighton. We spoke about Brighton, how good they are at identifying talent. I don't think you necessarily need the stats for this one, because I love Harvey Elliott. But Aston Villa, look, I sit there with, if the Aston Villa story is true, then what does that mean? I guess, Johnny, if Aston Villa are looking at Harvey Elliott, who is it that's going to be leaving their current midfield, for what price, under what circumstance? Is this we'll sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, but we'll steal a little bit more money from the sale than we'll pay for the next guy, and hopefully the transition, the quality sort of transfer isn't that much, but we need to get some of the money back into our revenue to cover our FFP problems. I mean, what's your thoughts on Harvey Elliott? Where do you see him going?
If I was him, I'd be going to Villa. No disrespect to Brighton, but to slot into that midfield with Morgan Rogers and the rest, I think, for me, that's the place to go. It's a strong midfield. They're going to get rid of Bailey. They're probably going to sell Martinez. He's still only 22 years of age, attacking midfielder. To me, he looks like a Villa player. I just think with that midfield, the high tempo, that's what he's used to at Liverpool. 18 games last season, not a lot of games. 18. I'm not sure if all of them were how many were off from the bench, but only 1 goal and 2 assists last season. So for an attacking midfielder in a team like Liverpool, I wouldn't say that was the greatest return, but he's still only 22. I think it seems to be, I don't know about you guys in the chat, but Harvey Elliott seems to be a player that's been around for a number of years now. He has. I think he's been on there since he was about 18, 19. He's been coming into the team.
Sure.
But he's only played like 11% of the minutes. So I think, going to Villa, he's the type of manager, Emery, that would improve him.
I was just having a look at their transfer news here, and apparently Court of Side is saying that Leeds United are very interested in taking a couple of midfielders, actually, or a couple of players out of Aston Villa. First of all, Eni Buendia, who I think is a really good player.
Buendia, but he's had a lot of injuries. He was great at Norwich. He came to Villa. He started off very well first few games, got that injury, and I don't think he's really rekindled that form that he showed at Norwich. And, he was their sort of star player. Who was the other one now?
And Alex Marino, who plays left-sided player, left back, left winger, whatever. Yeah. Another really good player. Like, there's no bad players in the Aston Villa team, are there? They're all good quality. Like, I don't necessarily think that they're all sort of top 5 level skill sets, but Buendia's sort of, and Marino, I think, has sort of dropped down to 3rd or 4th in the pecking order at Aston Villa. But for a team like Leeds, I think that makes a ton of sense. So, bring in Premier League experience. 100%. Leeds United look like they've got, desires to throw as much money as they possibly can. The 49ers ownership thing, there's going to be some opportunities, I think, for Leeds United to do what most teams haven't managed to achieve in the last few years in the Premier League, which is to actually hang around and try and do what Nottingham Forest. I think were Nottingham Forest the last team to come up and stay up? I'm not sure. That sound about right to you?
I have to have a look at that one. It's interesting now with the 49ers now owning Leeds and Glasgow Rangers.
Yeah,
both clubs, supporters expecting them to invest money under the new ownership. Rangers definitely been short of money. Will each club be looking at each other's club to say, well, hang on a minute, you've got in there and you've splashed 100%. The cash. You've absolutely splashed the cash down at Leeds. But Rangers, we're going to be in Europe, and you've not spent a penny. You're not spending.
Let's chew that one over, mate, because we saw what happened with people like Bill Foley, Bournemouth owner, when he tried to. Well, I think it was Lorient in France when he tried to take them over, to buy them and slide them into his MCO. They went absolutely mental. The Lorient Ultras were burning effigies of the geezer and having tearing the stadium up, saying we don't want to play second fiddle to an English team. We're not interested in Les Anglais. I'm just wondering, out of Rangers and Leeds, which who in their fan bases are passionate, fiery, loyal, and think of themselves as two of the biggest teams, and rightly so, two of the kind of monsters of English football historically.
I mean, remember the battle? Who of you in the chat remembers the Battle of Britain in the Champions League between Leeds and Glasgow Rangers? Those epic games. I think it was Mark Haitley, Ali McCoist for Rangers, and then the Leeds. When Ribsdale was splashing the cash and burning the club to the ground without people really knowing it. How ironic that the same owner is now the owner of both of those clubs. And I just think that the club, the owners, the 49er owners, knowing full well that to stay in the Premier League is where the real money is. Yeah, they're going to spend it there, and they might sacrifice Glasgow Rangers, which I don't think is going to go down well.
Working out very well at all, mate. They're going to give you a Glaswegian kiss goodbye. What do they call it? Guys, there's 400 people in the house on a Sunday. Love to see it. It's 6:00. Please do the favors we always ask. We don't ask for much, but smash the granny out of the like button for us. We're trying to grow this bad boy up. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already, and then we can move on.
Yeah, if you're new. If you're new to the channel and you just popped in, hit the subscribe button. Subscribe doesn't mean it costs you money. I had somebody from America ask me, how much does it cost to subscribe? It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. It just notifies you when we're on live, and it just sends you a little message. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Helps us grow, helps the algorithm, helps us. So thanks very much for coming along and doing that for us.
100%. Mate, let's have a little chinwag about where's my stories up here. Let's go and get it. So let's move on to Eberechi Eze, mate. The obviously the big story that came out.
Is that a big story?
Well, it seems to be, if you are a Tottenham fan, it seems to be a bit of a catalyst.
Bombshell news, Sean. Bombshell news. For all this time, fans, especially Spurs fans who have been wanting Eze for a long time, have been under the impression that it's not going to happen because they needed 68 million pound up front. And then the bomb's just been dropped by Paul O'Keefe and some others that it's all a bunch of lies. And it is, in fact, 3 20 million pound payments. Now, Daniel Levy's now backed into a corner because he stated, we're ready to win. We're ready to win it all. The Champions League, the Premier League. Well, if you can't commit to the player, the one footballer probably that would unite the entire fan base, the 100%. One player you could sign that everyone would get behind is Eberechi Eze. And for him to not buy him because he's 27 or he's coming to 28, he's got no return on the money. We've all spoken about, and everyone's spoken about, experience. This guy's got it. This guy is the guy when you got a low block and you can't beat them, he drops the shoulder, bangs one into the bottom corner. He single-handedly dragged Crystal Palace through the quarterfinals, the semi-final and the final, beating Manchester City. He's everything. If you were going to describe a Spurs player, this guy's it, right? He's Spurs. You look at him, you look like the Ginolas and all the attractive players that have played for Spurs over the years, his language style, he's it. The question is Levy going to talk the talk, or is he going to finally walk the walk and splash the cash down?
Do you know what, mate? I think that, obviously, I don't know. This is a massive speculation here, right? But however that got out, for the last 6 months, everyone's known that there's a 68 million release fee. Right. Allegedly, that was a story that was going to open up on July the 1st. And everyone was like, okay, so there's the problems around who's going to pay it. Connor from Levynomics came on and said, that Tottenham have got, I think 72 million, I think he said, the most amount of cash in the bank of any Premier League club, which is historically low for us, but everybody else has got less than that. So if you have to pay it all in one lump sum, then it's going to be difficult to see Eze going anywhere if Crystal Palace are going to play hardball and hold out for that number. Now, obviously, one of the workarounds would have been you offer a little bit more than the 68 and then you work it into installments, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, whoever leaked the truth, right, however it got out, the timing of it could not be more perfect for Tottenham fans who are holding Daniel Levy's feet to the fire.
100%.
Because he's just come out with that video saying, the last video we heard from him, or the last statement was, we have to live within our means. We can only afford what we can afford. The next video is, I'm working with my red wine buddy here, and we've won the Europa League, but it's not enough. Failure is not an option. We have the intentions to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. And then a couple of days later, the bomber is dropped that it's not going to break the bank. It's not going to break the bank at all. You've got a top draw player there that everyone, as you say correctly, is universally behind the signing of. It will demonstrate some intent, some ambition. It will make everyone sit up and think, well, there's a massive hole plugged.
Yeah.
And it suddenly becomes far more affordable than the get out of jail free card that Levy was hanging the hat on. If he didn't want to do it, was, well, we can't afford that and do everything else. You can now. So Daniel Levy, how much did you mean what you said? And if you don't do this one, or if you don't do this one and don't go, like, it's one thing to not do this and then go and get a different bomber if that's the way that Thomas Frank wants to go, for example. But if you don't do that and then we end up with kids, then you're done. You're cooked out here, bro. I won't be able to defend you. No one will, right? So
August, when it comes to August and that transfer window closes, if we don't have the bomber of Bueno, Eze, or Semenya, lesser than, then you're getting burnt at the fire. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. £20 million, right? 2020. We blow £20 million on managers and staff and sackings. It's nothing in this day and age. It's nothing. 20 million a year over 3 years. So what? Go and buy the bloody player. This is it. This is your moment. No more bullshit, right? We're paying 170 grand a week to Timo Werner for 2 seasons, right? And you want to worry about paying 20 million pounds for them. And it's not like he's going to be on 300 grand a week. This is the deal that has to be done. If he's serious, and if he's serious, I mean, I was listening to the video of, we want to win this, we want to hear that, we want to win the Champions League, we want to win the Premier League, and I'm hearing ABBA, the winner takes it all. It's all going on, right? And but the reality, I'll come back to earth, and right, well, talk's cheap. You got to walk the walk now, Levy. There's no more talking. Okay, you've laid it out on us. Okay, now you got to deliver.
So Murdoch here is saying, surely Levy will recoup a lot of the money from an Eze transfer through merchandise sales. What would be really interesting, right? Because I don't know if Tottenham still, when I was growing up, I remember in like 1996, I think it was, I bought a t-shirt, a shirt, and my dad paid for the shirt, but he said, whatever name, just to teach me like some sort of like a lesson or whatever, he goes, whatever name you want on the back and the number, you're going to pay for out of your pocket money. And I went for Rule Fox because he wore the 9 and he only had 3 letters and it was cheaper. I just wonder whether one of the conditions that Daniel Levy would put on it would be, listen, if you want to come to Tottenham, that's fine, but your name on the back of the shirt has to be Eberechi Eze, just so that he can get an extra couple of quid out of the shirt sale.
Or it could be sponsored by EE.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Do you think he's going to come to Tottenham, mate? Do you think Daniel Levy will finally step up and not let us down on this one, or do you think there'll be
Thomas Frank?
Complications?
I mean, Thomas Frank is a football fan, right? Okay, he loves football. You can't love football and not appreciate Eberechi Eze. It's just not possible, right? He's an England international, mate, right? We don't have what I class as a game changer. I'm not saying Maddison's, can't do stuff, but look at the goals he scored for Palace when he came back from that injury. Just banging goals out of nowhere. He positions himself. He started to position it under Glasner. He was taking up different positions than he did under the previous manager, under Roy. Roy had him positioned other places, but Glasner has got him positioned, taking positions up in the D. And
how do you see him working? Like, because he is a right-footed left winger /10.
He can play the 10, Sean, and that's the beauty of it, right? You know, Madison, we know.
What happens to Madison and Decky when they're both fit in a year's time? What happens? Do one of them get sold, do you think?
No, but no, I don't. See, I don't subscribe to this because I think the squad game, the demands now of playing Champions League and being a competitor in the Premier League means that you have to rotate. You have to rotate, meaning if Eze's playing, for example, in the Champions League against Juventus, for example, you make him play 75 minutes and then Madison comes on and he plays the last 15. And then when you play the Premier League 3 days later, you reverse it, that Madison maybe starts and Eze then comes on. You're going to have injuries. There's so many games to be played. And I think this sort of notion that Chelsea, we just discussed how many players Chelsea have got. They got what Spurs fans dream of having 2 top players for every position. Chelsea must have about 4, for each position. Manchester City, even in an injury crisis, can normally pick out players. I mean, Manchester City, no one's spoken about Oscar Bob coming back. He was out for most of the season. Rodri's been out and so-and-so's been out. Arsenal have had problems, but they're still bringing through like the Nwanis and stuff. I think I don't subscribe to the fact that you can't have too much talent. I believe you can have too little talent.
No, for sure. But
depth.
Yeah, but like, can you really justify having 3 10s?
Yeah.
You think you can? You're going to struggle to keep. You're not going to struggle to keep Decky and Madison happy.
No, because it's a squad game, mate. It's a squad game. It's a squad game. Decky was complaining before he got injured.
He's playing too much
games. I can't cope with it. I can't cope with it. And Ange didn't listen, carried on playing him, and he broke down. He broke down right in front of me. I knew exactly then that he was done. Toast.
His knee injury.
And now he's out for months on ends, right? Where he should have been given rest. And what I'm saying to you is, the drop-off was so severe. That's why he didn't, swap him out. And, I
just wonder, mate, whether or not, just quickly, this story breaking that it's not a £68 million release fee. Like I say, as much as no one would have wanted to have done it, had that been the truth, had that deal been the reality, Tottenham would have been the only club that probably could have done it at the time. Right? Yeah. Now that it's 3 lots of 20 million, suddenly a top draw player that would probably make it into most squads in the Premier League, nearly all of them. I don't know. I can't think of any team that probably would go, we're good. Like we've already got 2 players better than him in the 10 and the left wing. Even City don't, right? So I just make the argument that does this bomber of the transfer structure being available, does it bring other clubs into play, such as, for example, and here's a transfer story here. Gabriel Martinelli, he's wanted by Bayern Munich today, and they've entered into discussions, apparently informal, exploratory conversations. Bayern Munich were offered Marcus Rashford for 40 million quid. They haven't even returned the email saying no thanks. That's how little interest they had in him. But they are interested in Gabriel Martinelli. And if Arsenal do let him go, does Eze go back to Arsenal? He did play for Arsenal.
Yeah, he played as a kid. As a kid, he's Arsenal. I mean, I think there's pictures of him with Arsenal's gear, spoken to people. But listen, there were rumours that Martinelli would go, and Arsenal were desperate to try and get hold of Nico Williams. Nico Williams looks now destined that he's going to leave Athletic Bilbao and go to Barcelona. Not quite sure how Barcelona are going to get the money. No doubt they'll be selling something else, a bit like Chelsea, selling items of belongings they don't possess anymore. They'll find something.
I think their players' ex-wives, wedding rings or whatever.
I think it would pain Spurs fans terribly, and I think they would hold. Levy responsible if he ended up going to Arsenal. I really do believe that. When he came to Spurs 2 or 3 games before the end of the season, and he absolutely destroyed us. When he was signing autographs at the end, kids were running up to him. Are you going to come to us? You need to come to Spurs. Like I'm talking about kids and adults. They all want him.
Yeah, he's
And
a Tottenham player. He just happens to be, on loan right now to Crystal Palace, right?
Daniel, look, you know the club like to watch you and me, whether it's here or on the Spurs Talk Show. So if you're watching, Daniel, come on, like you want to win the fan base over, and you want to turn the hollow words into something of substance. Now's the time to strike. Now's the time, and you don't need to spend 60 million, 20 million. 20 million, 20 million.
Like, nobody, I don't care, the staunchest Levy outers. If Daniel Levy means what he says for once, right? And of course, like what happens on the pitch is not on him, but the preparation for what happens on the pitch is indirectly, right? And so if Daniel Levy gives him Eberechi Eze, if Daniel Levy goes and signs a 6, and the 6 market, which I know this is a Tottenham, more predominantly Tottenham topic. We're going to move on to other transfers in a second, guys. Bear with us. But if Daniel Levy can 100% turn a lot of that fan base that walked across the aisle towards the Levy out, change for Tottenham thing in like April and March and February, they'll all wander right back over again if he just goes and gives Thomas Frank the best possible rolling start. Eze, go and do it now before Arsenal have the opportunity to strike. Go and do it now before Liverpool go, Luis Diaz is going to leave the club. Darwin Núñez is going to leave the club. We'll bring another one. Go and do it now before Manchester City sell Jack Grealish and need a new left winger to come in. Go and do it now, because if you sit on your hands here thinking that no one else is in the market for this guy, well, this bit of news changes everything, I think, for the access to other teams coming in. It's important that we take it seriously.
Yeah, don't think, Daniel, you can go and like not only find that it's 3 installments, but think, well, instead of paying 68 million over 3 installments, right? I negotiate it to 45 million over 3 installments, negotiate the arse out of it, and we're still trying to do it like mid-August, and someone comes in, bang, pays the money. It's that's the way. And by the way, whoever said that Martinelli's a pile of dog turd, right? Come on, we all know that he's not, right? His energy and his effort and his work rate is absolutely superb. Even
I'd take him. He's better than anything we've got on the left hand side, for sure.
What was 100%. That one you just said there, Matt?
What's that? Sorry.
No, what was this one? For me personally, after listening to Levy's interview, if he doesn't end up signing anyone of significant experience and quality, well, we've spoken about Jonathan David, and we haven't spoken about Locatelli, but that's another one. Right, let's move away from Spurs for a minute.
Yeah. Well, we've got another story here, but it's a couple of hours ago. The source is AS, which is a
Italy, is that or not?
No, it's Spanish. It's a Spanish sports paper. And they're coming out saying that Arsenal have made a move for Real Madrid winger Rodrigo.
Yeah.
It hit a stumbling block because of the Brazilian's wage demands at £10.2 million a year, which is 210 grand a week. Listen, I'll be entirely honest. If he only wants 210 grand a week, like Rodrigo is one of the greatest wingers in the game. He's absolutely insane. I've got no idea what the reasons are why he wants to get out of Real Madrid, but 210 grand a week isn't massive, not massive money to play. Yeah, Arsenal already paid Kai Havertz 350 grand a week. What are we doing here?
Ozil 300 grand a week, and the other the striker, what was his name? They couldn't get rid of.
Were they paying Pepe a lot of money? But they
paid fortunes. Yeah, listen, we know that Zubamende, absolutely top draw signing. If they got him. Right, I'm actually worried about Arsenal next season. I've got to be honest. I'm hoping that they're faffing around so much with the strikers they don't get any of them. But they're building a squad. They're building a very good squad there. Luckily, Liverpool and Man City have also invested, so they won't have it all their own way. But no, listen, he's a quality winger, no doubt about it. And here's the guy who thinks. He's a legend in his own mind.
This is absolutely fascinating. Like Barcelona, where is Marcus Rashford going to go, mate? Bayern Munich aren't picking up the phone to even acknowledge it. Barcelona are on the brink of signing Nico Williams. They're not going to need him as well. Who in the Premier League? Like Aston Villa don't have the money. They probably would if they could, but they can't. He's not going to go. He's not going to go to Chelsea. He's not going to go to City. He's not going to go to Liverpool. I'd be amazed if Tottenham would do anything, even though I personally I don't hate it like a lot of people do. I really don't. I think he's top drawer and he wants to be. And I think in a sort of a club like Tottenham, he could. Huh?
Is that not the problem when he wants to be? And the danger here is this guy's a legend in his own mind. I'm too good for Man United. I'm too good for Villa, right? All right. I want to play for Barcelona. Okay. That's how good I am. I want to play for Barcelona. But the reality is Barcelona don't think he's the player for them, right? Because they're going
for another guy that thinks he's too good for the boots that he wears, right? Nico Williams. He's a hit and miss player.
But he doesn't. He's not singing it from the rooftops. Nico Williams has stayed at his boyhood club. You know, they paid him all the gold that he can eat. And now he's moving on. His brother's looks like he's going to stay at Athletic Bilbao. But what I'm saying here is, if this guy thinks he's too good for Man United, he's too good for Aston Villa, and he can't get in a Barcelona, what's going to happen if he ended up, say, a different club in the Premier League?
Who?
Is he going to look down on himself and say, have this sort of attitude, like, you know, I could be at a better club, I'm better than this? Right, if you're strutting your stuff, if that's your attitude,
but what is that attitude? What are you basing that opinion on? I don't know. Like, I've got no idea. Like, all we do is read what we read, right? But like, there's always agendas at play.
There's a reason, I know, but there's a reason, Sean. Right? There's a reason. It's not just he's on a big wage that Amorim's come up with this. It's about training. He said it's about training and all the rest of it.
Putting in the effort. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
And why have Aston Villa? Who he didn't do bad. He didn't do bad at Aston Villa.
He did really well, to be honest.
Yeah. So why is there no desire for Aston Villa to negotiate? Maybe
they can't afford it right now. Right?
Yeah,
Aston Villa can't put that salary on.
They could maybe loan him and do a deal with Man United.
Yeah, but they still need to get that number. That wage turnover ratio is far too high. I think Unai Emery would take if there was nothing else going on in the considerations. Do you want Marcus Rashford at Villa? I think he would take him back. But I think they're stuck between a rock and a hard place at the moment.
I get you, but if you're Marcus Rashford and you enjoyed your successful spell, you say, I'd be only too happy to come back here. I had a really good time.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything, has he, as far as I'm aware? He hasn't mentioned it.
Right, and this is my point. He hasn't been twerking to go back to Aston Villa. He's already looking for pastures new in Barcelona. Right, I'm not going down the way, man. I'm going up the way.
But where else could he go? Would he go to PSG? Is that viable? No. Only if PSG sell Bradley Barcola. But I don't think that's going to happen.
PSG is selling Kolo Muani. Right, I'm sorry. Kolo Muani at the moment is a better player than Marcus Rashford, in my opinion. In my opinion.
No, I don't disagree. So I'm just thinking though, but like, where is he going to go? I can't see where he's going to go because like Italy probably can't afford his wages. Even on a loan deal, Man United, it's not in Manchester United's interest. They can't really afford to just loan him out for another year and pay 50% of the wages without getting any money back because that's one of their solutions to the cop block that they're in.
Correct.
So, like Man United are either going to have to basically write him down to zero and say just go for free, and then whoever takes him on, or go for 10 million, then whoever takes him on can factor that they haven't paid a transfer fee into the salary and then sign him on like a 3-year deal. Like I said before, I personally think that Marcus Rashford needs to think about this a little bit differently. If he cares about his career, him and his agent need to be thinking, let's not cut our nose to spite our face here. Let's leave, accept the lower salary. Let's like get back down to like the 220s, the 200s, whatever, something like that. And then wherever you go next, if that doesn't work out for whatever reason, then you still have options when more doors open up as a consequence that you're not pricing yourself out of 99.9% of the clubs out there. But I mean, whether he does that or not, I don't know.
I mean, the thing is for me, I mean, Man United have made this of their own making, right? Because you look at Amorim, what he's done. So he's alienated Anthony. I don't want Anthony. I don't want Jadon Sancho. I don't want Rashford. I don't want the goalkeeper. I don't want this one. I don't want Højlund, right? I'd like him to go. You add those players up and how much they're costing.
Fortunes.
How much they cost, how much they want, and how much they're on in wages. That is the massive block.
So do you think that Amorim's kind of public persona here, it's hurt him because essentially he's saying that they're poisoned apples for us.
Correct. Same with Garnacho.
Someone else take them, and everyone's going, well, if you don't want them, why would we? For the same reason, we don't want to inherit that shit at our place.
Correct. The same with Garnacho. Garnacho complaining that he didn't. I don't like to see a kid of young kid, from South America worrying about dyeing his hair blonde, right? Worry about playing your football, right?
Yeah.
And some of his antics and what have you, and they want him gone. Now, there's no doubt that Garnacho is a hot talent. Now, do you put your arm around him instead of like saying to him, I'm not coping with his nonsense? Or do you draw him aside and say, look, I love you. You're a great player, but I need to turn you around. You need to, there's ways to handle it. Or is Amorim, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you are. You do what I want or else. And look at all these players who have not shaped up. And now he wants to ship them out. And he's created a scenario there, along with Ratcliffe, where, we want rid of them all. Well, who's buying them? They're not going to be paying the money that you want to enable you to go back into the transfer market and buy all these players. It's not happening. So I don't know how long Mbuemo's going to have to be sat there, but definitely Chelsea rejecting Jadon Sancho and Bruno Fernandes rejecting Saudi has definitely hurt Man United big time. What else?
I don't disagree, mate. I don't disagree. I think
this one we definitely won't be. I said to you, I couldn't see him moving months ago. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I don't disagree. I think you hit the nail on the head with the Rashford situation there. And I think you've obviously, I think you're very close to hitting the nail on the head when I asked you last week, 2 weeks ago about Mark Gahey's move. Where's he going to go? Well, it looks like the Guardian are on your page, mate. They're saying that he's just going to run his contract down and then be at the table with anyone and everyone around world football. What sort of salary will he be able to command if he goes for a free transfer?
$300,000. Listen, he'd be on, depending. Bayern Munich would take him. I think most of the top clubs would take him. You could probably demand, you're probably looking at similar to what Jonathan David's agents are looking at, 10 million agents fee, 15 million signing on fee, 250, 300 grand a week, something like that.
Do you think he is there, I don't know, like a sniff of a chance here where Palace go, we don't want that to happen, so we're going to force that, we're going to lower our asking price, and ideally, if that's your plan, if you want to run the contract down, bearing in mind that Palace are about to lose, probably about to lose Eberechi Eze. Jean-Philippe Mateta is on the eyes of...
Sure. Sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you there.
Cool.
Do you not think that's a strange one? That no one has yet come in for Mateta?
Well, there's a lot of teams that are sniffing around him for sure.
But with Steve Parish, you see, the thing is, they're going to be a victim, Crystal Palace, of their own sort of contract slavery. We know who we're talking about, Wilfried Zaha, who tried to get out of there, at the height of his... of his fame, and he signed that contract and couldn't get out, and ended up, in Turkey. It was the only place he could really go, which is rather unfortunate. And I think, they're all mates and what have you. I just think I can't see him doing anything, as I said to you a couple of weeks ago, other than running the contract down. There is a scenario with Liverpool selling Konsa to buy Leverkusen. Konate has only got 1 year left on his contract, and there's a possibility that Liverpool might try and sell him. In which case, you might be able to entice him with the fact that he would be a starting. He's not going to leave Crystal Palace to be a Konsa, to be a backup. He's going to start and play alongside Virgil van Dijk. It's the only thing he'll be interested in which case, having spent £119 million on Florian Wirtz and the money they're paying him, they could afford to potentially come to a deal with Crystal Palace and still offer him a fantastic signing on fee and wage. That's the only possibility I can ever see happening.
For Gahey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they would have to sell Konate.
But the thing for me, well, would they have to sell Konate? They've already got rid of Kwanzaa, right?
I know, but Konate's got 1 year left on his contract, and they.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
If he's not gonna,
you don't think at this stage there's any intention for Liverpool to do it right now, to try and get it done right now?
No, I think if they can't force Konate, well, they got the same situation with Konate as Crystal Palace have with Gay, right? 1 year left on his contract. Can they get him to sign? If they can get him to sign, then I can't see that deal happening because Gayhe's not going to leave to play second fiddle.
If Gayhe wouldn't leave to play second fiddle, Gayhe would leave to start next to Van Dijk. Well, 100% he would, in my opinion. Gayhe's. I'm not a fan of Gayhe as everyone else is, but I know he's a cracking defender. Konate's a great defender as well. But Liverpool have got options. For me, I think if I'm Mark Gayhe and I'm Crystal Palace, if there's a way that you get this done now, and then Palace can go out to Sporting and go and sign Diamandi before the rest of the world wake up to how good that guy is, then I think that if I'm Palace, I'm having a sit down. If I'm Steve Parish or Texter or whoever it is that pulls the strings in that team, I sit down with Mark Gayhe's agent and says, what's your intention? Be sincere. Be honest with us. We've given you everything. You've given us everything. It's a nice relationship. You've been here for a long time. Yada, yada, yada. Please, let's not beat around the bush here. Is he going to do what he's going to do, what we think he's going to do? If so, then can we meet in the middle here? And like, we you kind of, I know it's a genuine thing. Contracts are contracts, whatever. But at the same time, if you love Palace, like, what's good for the goose can be good for the gander here. And then they move, even if it's to Newcastle, right? But they go and get 50 million quid for him, 55 million quid. I think someone would pay 55 million quid for him right now if they could.
Of course, they would.
And then Palace go to Sporting and go and offer 40 million quid for Diamandi. That's a ready-made like-for-like player.
But the thing is, Sean,
otherwise they'll be paying 70 million quid for Diamandi in 12 months' time, mate.
We always think as fans, from our perspective, or from the club's perspective, you've got to look at this from the player's perspective, right? He's done his time. He's been loyal, right? The fact that he could probably get maybe 15 million signing on fee,
sure,
and get a huge wage.
And his agent's going to get from that as well.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Aaron Ramsey, I remember Aaron Ramsey left for a free contract and got 300 grand a week in Italy, right?
Yeah.
No one's going to pay him 300 grand, but because he was on a free and he got a sign-on bonus and like happy days. And it's game-changing money. If you're not going to Saudi Arabia and you can do this, then...
No, I hear you. I definitely hear that. But it's not unheard of for players that have been loyal to their clubs and that where the club's been loyal to them, when they approach that last year of the contract, to figure out a method that's good for both parties, to extend by a year. Maybe that's what we're seeing with Sonny. Maybe that's what we're seeing with Ben Davies at Tottenham. Right, where there's a bit of loyalty, we don't know the specifics of the contract extension, whether there's a little kind of a golden handshake or a golden goodbye in there, whatever. But it's a way whereby the club and the player that have had a good relationship for many years don't treat this like in the typical method, and that it doesn't mean that the player is sacrificing his major payday in figuring out a nice outcome for both teams. And obviously, I'm speculating here, but there are loads of examples of players that have got 1 year left on the contract that haven't just wound the clock down, and sort of like what Trent did at Liverpool, for example.
Yeah, but
there's lots of examples there.
Yeah, but the thing is, look, Gayhe's not on a lot of money, and he's sacrificed quite a lot. He's probably not even anywhere near the highest paid player at the club. Nowhere near. Yeah,
who is the highest paid player? Is it Eze?
Probably Eze, right?
Yeah.
But my point here is, he's made that sacrifice. So Parish would go to him and say, right, we want you to sign a new and improved contract, right, for 130 grand a week or what have you. But we'd have to sign a new contract. And then the agents will say, well, we want a buyout clause inserted, and they can't agree with the buyout clause. So no, forget it, right? So he's playing that game. So he's gone and getting paid 50, 60, 70 grand a week, right? Where he could be earning a lot more over the last 2 or 3 years. He could have easily signed a new improved contract. He could sign one now for a big fee, but he knows he'll never get out of Palace. He'll never get out under Parish if he does that. So,
we shall see, mate. We shall see. It's interesting. Crystal Palace are another team, though. We talked a hell of a lot about ransackings that are going on around European football. Certain teams are just getting absolutely pillaged. Palace yet to be touched, yet to be kind of assaulted like that, if you know what I mean. But in the same regard, it might not be beyond the realms of reason here that by the end of August, Palace could be without their top 3 players. They could have lost Eze. They could have lost Jean-Philippe Mateta, who's on the minds of Manchester United. He's on the minds of a lot of clubs. And obviously they could lose Gahey as well if this situation plays out slightly differently. And then where do they go to find the next tier to get their players in? Because Palace, as much as they've just won the FA Cup, they're not necessarily going to be in Europe yet. We don't know how that story is going to play out, which is wild. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams that are kind of champing at the bit to be a part of knocking on the door of European football in the Premier League race, like the sort of 10th to 8th place teams, like the Bournemouths, the Palaces, the Wolves. Wolves have just signed a monster in for Torres. Massive fan of him.
Yeah, very good.
We'll always bring in a couple of young Portuguese players that end up going on in the future somewhere else. So I just wonder if Palace get ransacked, but they do that happens after the complete kind of full clear out from what's happening at Bournemouth. Then are Bournemouth and Palace fishing in the same sort of size ponds? And are Bournemouth going to be going and picking up? Because Bournemouth have got a good scouting talent.
No. Listen, don't worry about Crystal Palace. I mean, look, the biggest loss to them wasn't a player. It was Dougie Freeman. Dougie Freeman has been unbelievable for Crystal Palace over the last few years. The signings, Walton, Eze, Elise. I mean, I could go on and on and on, right? He's just fantastic talent scout. But listen, they've been linked with the Demonde, isn't it?
Mandy Amanda, yeah, from Sporting.
Monday, right? What a fantastic player what a fantastic signing that would be. I won't worry about Crystal Palace. They'll play hardball, they'll sell what they want to sell, and they'll hold on to what they want to hold on to. So I wouldn't worry about it. Can I just say, guys, if you're in the chat and you haven't hit that like button or subscribe button, if you're here for the first time, please hit it. Helps us grow the channel. We want to bring you more content as this fledgling channel grows. And we're growing really quickly.
Yeah, there's 550 people here right now. It's wild numbers for a small channel, mate. It's absolutely wild. So really appreciate everyone that comes by every afternoon for a cheeky hour with us too. The only way we ask you to say thank you is to smash the like button and the subscribe if you haven't already. Nothing else is necessary. Although if you do want to, there's memberships and super chats and that stuff available, but not really concerned with. Remember, all we're trying to focus on is bringing out some decent content. Mate, I know we've gone for the hour, Johnny. If you've still got another 10, 15 minutes.
No. We've got to speak about the Ramsdale.
We've got to speak about him. We've got to speak about this one as well. So Jamie by now Gittins.
Jamie
G, top player. Chelsea thought that they were all over this guy. Maybe the story about Kolo Muani going to Chelsea. Obviously, Muani's a striker, but can also play as a kind of wing forward.
Yeah.
They pivoted in that direction because Bayern Munich are now apparently, according to Kicker, big German outlet, they're serious about signing Borussia Dortmund's wing superstar protege. What's your thoughts there, mate? It's a merry-go-round of rumours at the moment, isn't there? It's crazy. I think there's going to be some absolute monster transfers this summer, mate.
Yeah, I thought Jamie Gittins. I really like him. I thought that he might go to Man United because Man United were looking to try and swap Jadon Sancho for him, return Jadon Sancho to Borussia Dortmund and then bring Jamie Gittins here. That didn't work out for various reasons. Then we had Chelsea coming in for him, obviously returning Jadon Sancho, willing to pay the £5 million fine, then sign Jadon Sancho. Gittins, much more stable as a player and as a personality. And I think he would have been a much better signing. But maybe the problem with Chelsea is there's just no room at the inn.
Well, that is a problem, isn't it? Like you're sitting there, and it depends how seriously you're taking your career.
You're going on about Spurs having no. We should be in such a position to have the array of goods that they have there.
Yeah, but I mean, just remind me that rule around 6 players being or 7. It was 8, now it's 7. I think it goes to 6 players that can be loaned out externally.
Is it this year? I think it is, isn't it? This season?
Yeah, I think it drops down every year. I think it started at 9, and I think it finishes at 6.
Yeah,
so it's a sliding scale. I'm not sure what it's at this year. It might be 7 now. But that's just for overseas loans, right? And that's also only for players that are 21 or over, I believe. Unless someone in the chat or you, Johnny, can correct me. I think that if you're someone between the age of 8 or 16 or whatever, 7 to 8, it would be 18, wouldn't it? 18 to 21, then they can be loaned out without affecting that.
At the club, yeah. I think if you come through the club, academy players don't count in that number. What it is you can't buy a player. I think it's buying players of a certain age and then loaning them straight back out, which is what Chelsea were doing. Chelsea were loaning them all over Europe. Brighton were doing it as well, but now they've got the model where they've got the club in Belgium that they own, and now he owns Hearts. He's taken a 30% stake in Hearts, the Brighton owner. So, yeah, they're limited, but Gittins is a very good player. You can see him going to Bayern Munich. Why not? They've got rid of Sane. They've got rid of Tell, and to have someone on that flank again makes sense to me. Makes sense. But how much they want for him? They were looking at sort of 40, 50 million. I think Borussia Dortmund. It's a lot of money, but.
Listen, mate. The German market that they have that 50 plus 1% ownership model for at least or 18 of the 20 teams or whatever that are out there. So they have to kind of they have to do things a slightly different way. And the German league is propped up by the sugar daddies of the Premier League so often, and a lot of them fail when they come over here and end up back there anyway a couple of years later on. Do you see Jadon Sancho? Because there is a story about Jadon Sancho here, and there's also one I want to cover off about Aaron Ramsdale as well. Let me just get the Jadon Sancho. I can't find it. Let me get the Jadon Sancho.
While you're doing that, I'll just say Nicholas Kasapis, right? Johnny, with so much experience, do you really believe we would spend nearly 70 million for a player who's going to be 28? He could give us 3 to 4 years, 20 million a year. There's absolutely no chance of that happening. Well, listen, if you have ambition, right, we're signing the guy who's going to be 28. He's not 28 yet. He's going to be 28. He's not 32. And if he gives us 3 or 4 years of unbelievable football that takes us to win a trophy, keeps us in the Premier League, keeps us in the Champions League, he's more than paid for himself. Through the glory of winning a trophy, you have to have experience mixed in with kids. And, if I said to you, a crazy player, I mean, look, we haven't had a drop the mic signing since Rafa van der Vaart, in my opinion. That was the last one where everyone went, what? I can't believe it. We've signed him. And we need that moment now. Spurs fans need that moment. So I believe that, yes, we could pay that money. I do. Likelihood is, will Levy do it? Maybe not. And for the reasons you're saying. But, Nicholas, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I look at it, we spend that money, he brings us glory, and he wins us games. And that's what I'm in. I want to see those magic moments when he's banging one into the bottom right-hand corner out of nowhere or lining the ball up for a free kick. We do not have...
Oh, that free kick he scored against us. He made that look so easy. He embarrassed our defence and our wall setup, wasn't it? It was just absolutely embarrassing that day.
It's not the first time he's done it. He's done it to other clubs. And my point here is that we need game changers, can create something out of nothing. Gareth Bale was a player, you're losing the game. He picks up the ball, bang. Draw or win, and that's what we desperately need as fans. And if Levy's seeing it, that's what he needs to do.
Mate, if Manchester United are a team and Chelsea are a team in the UK that seem to be linked with all in sundry, then there's one team in Italy that seem to be taking that same moniker, and that's Napoli. Unbelievable how many links in and out of their football clubs. So they've already signed Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah,
and stories out today are saying that Kevin De Bruyne has asked Antonio Conte to reunite him with Jack Grealish.
Yeah.
A player that is also on the mind of Tottenham Hotspur owner Daniel Levy, apparently. On top of that, Napoli are also looking at going to the other side of Manchester and apparently looking to pay the 25 million euro asking price for Jadon Sancho because he has expressed an interest to play with his best mate and former teammate Scott McTominay, who plays out in Napoli. But funnily enough, mate, Scott McTominay, as of the last 45 minutes, has just been the subject of a bid from Al Hilal, who are currently participating in the Club World Cup. They want Scott McTominay to join them in Saudi. I mean, how do you make sense of all this stuff, mate? It's like there's more stories coming out of Napoli than there were in the prime Mafia days. Like, it's madness, isn't it?
Listen, Scott McTominay has gone from a lack of respect at Man United and the Premier League.
Legend.
A lack of respect, right?
Yeah, he's quality player.
Yeah, he kept doing it for Scotland. I'm watching him and I'm going, hang on a minute. He's scoring again and again and again and again.
It's because his name is Scott McTominay, not Scott
McTominay.
Whatever.
McTominay. If his name was McTominay, right? But Conte saw through it. And there were people that laughed when he went to Napoli. He is now an absolute legend. They absolutely loved him. He won Player of the Season, didn't he?
Yep.
Napoli Player of the Season. He's lauded out there. There's no way he's leaving that to go and play for Al Hilal. Not a chance.
I agree. But, so we can chalk that one off. Unless, of course, he just wants the money. But again, if money was the only draw in football, I had a blazing row with, a heated debate on my channel last night with Lubo and Connor and Sabo about the wage structure being a problem at Tottenham. And I was like, look, I'm not saying it's not an issue, but ultimately, if wages were always the only ever thing that top players are looking for, then why isn't every top player in Saudi Arabia? And Connor came back and said, well, there's other things to consider. There's culture, there's the city. It's fair enough. It's a good rebuttal. But I just say that wages are a big deal, but they're not the only deal. I think that the probability of winning trophies is also a major factor. Now, for Scott McTominay, just quickly, I'm not sure if wages are necessarily the driver. He's still got time on his side with his career, and I think he's enjoying life out in Napoli, probably earning still decent money. And when you're a legend, do you really want to go? Do you want to leave being a legend to going being like an everybody else in Saudi Arabia, where it's just a status thing, isn't it? Who's the next prettiest toy in the most expensive playground in the world?
So, listen, as a counterweight to what we're saying about signing a potential player who's coming into 28, Lewandowski is 36 and still cutting his trade at Barcelona. If you've got the intelligence and you've got the skill set, you can still do the business. Lucky Singh, Rasmus Højlund, we told him to go to Napoli. Yes. The trouble is, Lucky Singh, when you're paying huge wages and you sign him for 75 million, you got an issue. How are you going to get rid of him? Because Napoli aren't going to be paying half of that money and they're not going to be paying half of his wages. So that's the problem. Story coming again and again and again.
100%. Do you buy into this idea that Jadon Sancho might end up at Napoli for 25 million euros? And if so, is that the key that's going to unlock Manchester United?
Again, the wages is an issue. He's on nearly 300 grand a week. He's on massive money.
Sancho is he?
Yeah, it's massive money. They signed him for massive money. He was in demand. He's definitely on over 250 grand a week.
300 grand a week.
Yeah, exactly.
300 grand. What were they thinking?
Because then it was just the telephone number, Sean. Yeah, 300 grand. That's the standard. Because when you're negotiating, right? If you're the agent, right? Okay, so I'm the agent. I'm Jadon Sancho's agent. I'm taking him to Manchester United. I look at everyone else's wages. What are you paying him? Are you paying him for 250? You're paying him 300, right? Well, you want me to come?
Yeah.
I want parity. If I don't get parity, I'll go somewhere else. We'll pay me the parity. So, listen, Højlund has not delivered at all. But the chances, Sam and Lucky Singh, what do you think are the chances of him actually getting shoved out and someone either paying the money? I can only see a loan deal for him. Let's move on to Ramsdale.
Yeah.
Because, this is a keeper good enough to be playing in the Premier League. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
He
But the story today is that it's Galatasaray that want him.
Yeah.
At the same time as Newcastle United have also apparently been given the green. So the Newcastle Chronicle, a local northeast newspaper that obviously know a little bit about a thing or two regarding Newcastle. They have given the green light to sign Newcastle. Like Newcastle need a sort of another goalkeeper to come in and compete. They haven't got enough talent or depth in that area. Leeds United, according to MOT Leeds News, I don't know what that source is, are open to seal the outstanding quote unquote Ramsdale as an exclusive for them. But the Times, the Sun, the Daily Echo, all of the big sort of national newspapers are all saying that Galatasaray are looking to take him out of England and out Southampton and take him over to Turkey, mate. If you're Ramsdale and you have your option of the three, are you going to go to Turkey for the tax haven that is for Turkish football, like for foreign players coming into Turkish football? I think they only pay 10% income tax. Or are you going to go to Newcastle and play second fiddle? Or are you going to go, or not second fiddle, but maybe compete, but probably not start all the time? Or are you going to go to Leeds and then maybe face the same outcome as you got with Southampton, which is Premier League 1 year, Championship the next?
I think Leeds, of the ones coming up, I think Leeds stand the biggest chance of staying up.
I'd agree.
I think one team that everyone's going to be looking at, can they survive, will be Brentford. Actually, what will happen to them with potentially Andrews coming in from the back staff, who used to be on Sky, I believe. Will he come and take over? I think, well, I keep saying this, because goalkeepers now, I said this over a year ago now, the way football's changed, where goalkeepers are playing out more and more from the back. They're coming into contact with midfielders and strikers, challenging 50-50, and more goalkeepers are getting injured. We saw Pope injured. We saw Vicario injured, Alisson. So many goalkeepers were injured last season. So I don't think, you're set on the bench all that time. So for me, if I was Ramsdale, I'd be going to Newcastle all day long, especially with Pope's injury record. I would think that he's got a very good chance of getting some good minutes. And he's a good keeper. He's a good shot stopper. He's not unbelievable with his feet, which is why, Raya superseded him at Arsenal. But we shall see. The Kepa deal hasn't still not gone through. Kepa from Chelsea to Arsenal for £5 million because they Arsenal sent back, was it Nino from Forest they had on loan. So they need a goalkeeper. Interesting to see which one that they go for. But if I was Ramsdale, I think I'd be going to Newcastle. It's too early to go to Turkey, in my opinion.
Last story for you, mate. And then we'll round off. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Guys, but there's still over 500 people in here. Love it. Can you smash the like button for us? All we ask, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. I think we started today on 2,150 subscribers. We're very close now to 2,200. So if you haven't already, it'd be nice to get over the 2,200 mark. We're only a couple of subs away. Thanks, guys, for your support. Last story for you, Johnny, is coming out of the Mirror. And that Arsenal have identified Brentford midfielder Christian Norgard as an option to bolster their midfield in a world where they can't sort out contract negotiations, which have stumbled and stalled apparently for Thomas Partey. Now, obviously, they already got Zubimendi that's done pretty much, or it's not official yet, but it is done. And then Mikel Merino, that spent most of last half of last season sort of playing as a false nine at times. But he's obviously a better, double pivot guy traditionally. Not so much worried about Arsenal here, because I think that Norgard, if there's any truth to it, would come in just as a backup, to sort of squeeze in when they've already got Declan Rice and the other two we just mentioned. But from Brentford's position, you just mentioned Brentford getting relegation threat ready here. That's another hammer blow to their chances, isn't it? Because Norgard is their captain, and he is he's a really solid six. He's not flashy. He's not one of those guys that's going to, make everyone talk about him all week long, but he is a very, very solid defender, understands the game very well, and has been really valuable to them. So if they lose him, you're going to have to rely on that data model again to go and find someone else pretty quick, aren't you?
I mean, Norgard, in my opinion, allows Damsgaard to do his thing. You know, if you took away Norgard, Damsgaard struggles. Damsgaard, great passer of the ball. We saw him at the Euros being fantastic. He struggled initially when he came to Brentford, but then, he's found his feet again. Really good. It makes sense for Arsenal, but I'm trying to work out. You've got Partey.
Well, he'll be leaving, and if they can't get him on a new contract, he'll be out.
Yeah, but even if you got Norgard, you'd have Norgard, Rice,
Marino and Zubimendi.
And Odegaard.
I think that the question mark there is who's going to play. Who's going to play? Yeah. Is Declan Rice a 10? No. Is he a midfield box-to-box 8? For me, he clearly is. He can play as a 6. For me, for sure, Zubimendi and Mikel Marino by themselves are not that great. They're better in a double pivot. So where does Declan Rice squeeze in? Does Declan Rice move up the pitch and compete with Odegaard? Well, and should Arsenal be looking at a Morgan Gibbs-White or someone? Because Odegaard is a real letdown all too frequently for Arsenal.
I still think Odegaard on his day is a very good player, but I actually think, having seen some of Declan Rice's performances last season, towards the end of last season, I think that if they move him further forward and they play the double pivot of Zubimendi and Moreno, and you push Declan Rice further forward, I think you're going to see him scoring a lot more goals.
Do you see him I don't see him as tricky and like he's a brilliant player, but he's slightly different to Odegaard.
But he's decisive, Sean, and he can hit a ball. I think he's a better player than, well, listen, he cost him £100 million. He's not like he's not an unknown talent. But I think
it's kind of like if you're asking Steven Gerrard to play in the 10. I'm just not sure if that's the 10's role generally, like a Frank Lampard. Yes, they can do it, but then they're better off a little bit deeper. And I just wonder how they're going to squeeze them all in.
But I think, when you look at the fact, I don't see Declan Rice as a 6. I know they signed him as a 6, but he seems to have gravitated. He looks better when he's playing forward.
Yeah.
And I just think if you have Zubimendi and Marino and Declan Rice, I think that for me is a much better setup. Look, we saw how good they were at Real Sociedad, and it's been great planning by Arsenal to go and buy Mourinho first and then make overtures. Liverpool tried to sign Zubimendi. That was the one signing they did try to make last summer. Didn't come off. Tried again in January, but it looked always that Arsenal were trying to link the two friends up again. And it looks like it's what's going to happen. But I think that's about it on the on the transfers, mate.
And, we'll leave it there, guys. Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed the show. I hope you did as well. Guys, last favour I've already asked a few times, but we're up to there's 550 people here, give or take. Smash the like button. We'll see you tomorrow, same sort of time. But anywhere between 3 and 5 o'clock every day, essentially, unless there's a problem, we'll be here talking about whatever's going on throughout the transfer window. We've got loads of other things, cool things to come when the season starts as well. So be a part of the early growth of the channel, and we'll get to know you all as we go along. Smash the subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so you know when we're going to go live, and make sure you drop those comments. Johnny, any final thoughts, my man?
No. It's just hopefully whoever you support come here, and we'll be bringing you the news.
My boy, I stood by him. Everyone said no. I said he's going to be a monster for us, and he's done it for France.
Oh, listen, he's going to look. Thomas Frank is going to try and turn him into a Brian Mbuemo. No doubt about it. It's his shooting that needs to be improved. And if you saw Brian Mbuemo 2 or 3 years ago, you would see he was so erratic in front of goal. And Thomas Frank's done a great job honing that undoubted talent and giving him end product. And that's all you ask for. You got all the build-up play, you got the pace, you got the quick feet. That's all you need. Scoring the goals. Guys,
this channel is called Football Inc. Football Inc. is what the channel's called, my man. Appreciate you, Lucky Scene. Appreciate everybody. Thanks for stopping by. We will see you tomorrow. And if you are a Tottenham fan, or if you're not, if you're interested, then I'm possibly thinking about doing a show a little later on, about 9 o'clock over on Spurs Talk Show. So if you fancy that, we'll go and talk about whatever's happening in the world of Tottenham. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, it's goodbye from him.
Me?
It's goodbye from you.
Goodbye from him. He always keeps forgetting it. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him. There you go. Ciao, guys.
See you soon, guys.